You're watching News at Prime. Let's pick up now on one of our leading stories. The NPA's investigative directorate saying the Estina Dairy Farm corruption case will be reinstated as soon as possible. The 280 million rand state corruption-linked matter was struck off the roll of the court today. This is at the Free State High Court due to unjustifiable delays. NPA spokesperson, Advocate Mthunzi Mhaga, is with us in studio this evening to explain exactly what happened. Advocate Mhaga, good evening to you and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Fali, and good evening to your viewers, and thanks for having us.
What happened? This is hugely embarrassing.
Look, it's not embarrassing, but disappointing to us, because we had provided the defense with hard copies of the so-called Gupta leaks as early January, February 2023. What was outstanding was the electronic version of the so-called Gupta leaks, which we obtained in February from the Netherlands through a mutual legal assistance process or request. Now, there had to be a creation of a digital platform within which to access that information, which we provided to them in June. But between June and February, we were authenticating and creating that digital platform for them. We even made available an expert to assist them or to facilitate them accessing that information. Now, we are disappointed that the matter is struck off roll because they had this information as early as last year, 2023, so they could prepare for a trial.
Why would the judge take their side of the story?
And on Monday, 5 August, we were ready, our witnesses were there, we were ready to have the matter ventilated in court. So that's why we're saying this is disappointing but not embarrassing at all.
Why would the judge, Advocate Mhaga, if the NPA had done everything humanly possible to provide the defense with these copies, why would the judge still take their side of the story?
That's why we're saying we're taken back by that judgment, but we will reflect on it once we receive a transcript thereof, because we've urgently requested that the judgment be transcribed because it was not a written judgment that she delivered. Yeah. Once we receive it, obviously we'll explore our legal avenues, but of importance to us is to reinstate the matter back, because remember, we were ready on Monday, and we still believe that one thing that is outstanding is them saying, look, we've successfully accessed the information and we've made available an expert to assist them to facilitate that access to that information. And remember what I said earlier, as early as 2023, they had hard copies. This is just an electronic version of the so-called Gupta leaks, which they could see. And remember, we were even saying that this evidence is not even evidence that we're going to start with. We start with other witnesses. Then, during the long run, in the 6 weeks, we may venture into that terrain. But they could allow the trial to proceed. We could even say we can entertain a possibility of postponing the matter for 2 weeks to allow them access to that electronic version. And then we proceed, or we resume with the proceedings.
In April last year, the Nulane Investments corruption case, or New Lane, whichever word you choose to use there, the 8 people accused in that matter were discharged because the NPA or the state was essentially found to be hopeless at proving its case. And so I'm bringing up this case in order to make my case against the NPA that what hope is there of ever extraditing the Guptas back to South Africa, because these 2 cases would have been the ones that would help South Africa strengthen its case to bring them back?
2 things. One, we hold the view that the judge erred. That's why we're taking that matter on appeal. And we are hopeful that the higher court will rule differently than the court accord. Secondly, the process of extraditing the Guptas back to South Africa is well underway. NPA colleagues are working tirelessly with the central authority, that is the DG's office, and the executive authority, that is the ministerial, the minister in the Department of Justice, to ensure that that process is resuscitated and we have them back in South Africa. So there's no impact in that process. Remember, we were proceeding without the Guptas. It does not mean that when the Guptas are not here, we can't proceed. Monday, we are ready to proceed. So there's no impact that these two cases have on the process of extraditing the Guptas to South Africa.
Is there a question around the expertise within the NPA to see through these cases? And I'm saying this because these are complicated financial crimes.
Yes.
And there has been this notion, or should we say this narrative, that our authorities in South Africa may be incapacitated or may not have the skill. And that's why there was even a suggestion that you look to the private sector. In fact, in your statement today, you even almost say that you had asked someone from the private sector to help the defense in accessing these files. Is there incapacity within the NPA, or have you been able to address that?
We've addressed that because in the two cases, the New Lane and the Estina, we're using silks that are experienced in the field within which the matter rests. And remember that I was here only 2 weeks ago. We were sharing good news of a conviction and a sentencing in the VBS matter, which is a clear indication that we've got capacity within the NPA, but where we feel the matter is complex enough and requires a silk, we do that.
I'm going to then close the conversation on the NPA staff. Do you have a problem, or do you have what I would call legacy issues of corruption within the NPA? And I'm saying this on the back of Advocate Matrick Lupondo, who is no longer with the NPA now because of corruption issues.
We believe...
What is the problem within the NPA? Does it still have those remnants?
We believe that is an isolated case. Unfortunately, I don't have a statistical account of those that would have been convicted of corruption. But it's an isolated case. We have credible, ethical prosecutors who hold and value and ascribes to our independence, professionalism, integrity, credibility, and accountability values.
Yeah.
We have demonstrated an anti-corruption stance, a rooting out corruption stance that ensures accountability even within our senior ranks, which is why Advocate Lupondo was dismissed and has been removed from the institution, because we don't believe that people of that caliber or character belong in the institution. Yes, the criminal prosecution is still underway, but the disciplinary process has been concluded and he has been dismissed. So back again, we do not have such a problem, but this is an isolated case.
Let's conclude then on this score, because we've dealt with questions around competency. We've dealt with matters of ethical behavior of prosecutors within the NPA. We have dealt with the question of people either being skilled enough or not skilled enough. Someone listening and is watching this space, they're saying, I'm not sure if I should believe Advocate Shamila Batoy's team. Is the NPA still an entity that can inspire confidence to the South African public that you are up to the task?
I've given you an example of the VBS. I know it's only 2 convictions and a total of 25 years.
But that was a confession.
In jail.
That was a confession.
People confess or admit to criminality because of the mounting evidence and the formidable case that is presented to them by the prosecution, working collaboratively with law enforcement. We are on course in ensuring that those responsible for state capture, are responsible for corruption, complex commercial crimes, are held to account. We can still be trusted. Give us space to operate. if you look at our statistical account insofar as asset forfeiture on covert, as well as the state capture in some of the matters, recently we obtained a 53 million asset forfeiture recovery order, restraint order against the Bosasa accused persons, Mr. Lindimti, Mr. Agrisi, Mr. Golaman, who was working for the Department of Correctional Services. That's an NPA in action. That's an NPA which ensures that the wheels of justice gets in motion and people are held to account for their misdeeds.
Advocate Mthunzi Mhaga, thank you very much for your time.